Let's talk about Treks, baby. Let's talk about OCLV. Let's talk about all the things I'm gonna put on this frame to drive you crazy. It nearly worked. Hello. Thanks for coming back. You'll be wondering why you did now, but hope you've had a lovely time since we last talked about my Trek top fuel OCLV, optimum compaction low void, carbon framed, downcountry lightweight trail bike project build, which I'm calling Twisted Trek because I like a bit of alliteration, and I'm making this one kind of alternative as reasonably can while still making sure that I do the frame justice, at least in this first build up. So we've done the front end, we've done Manitou, Matic Pro fork, we've done Bontrager all-in-one cockpit, we've done Hope Tech E4 brakes. So we've got the stop on there, we've got the steering on there. Now we need to make it go, and we need to make it roll along, which has been causing me a huge amount of thinking and stressing, and I'm probably just going to go for the easiest option in the end. But you'll see all of that unfold over the rest of this video, and I'll talk you through why I'm picking the bits I am to build up this Trek as kind of a, I think, I keep using the phrase hunter-killer more and more in conversations, just in terms of like a bike that is powerful enough to bring down larger prey. I mean e-bikes, that's what I'm talking about here, but also fast enough to catch them in the first place. And that's kind of the riding I like doing. I haven't decided whether to get any e-bike kill stickers for the top tube yet, in case I do catch any in the wild. But anyway, all that all depends on me getting the bike built up. So I'll stop chatting, you get your cup of tea and biscuits, and hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a complete bike that you can argue about in the comments, because it might not go the way you're expecting in places, although it might. Who knows? That's what I like about these project builds. It's so easy to just get, let's go full bling. But I like to put something on there, because I think about this. I think about it still like I did when I was a kid, drawing bikes in school exercise books from the Ron Kitchen catalogue or whatever, whatever bike catalogue I could get my hands on. I'm still that excited about it. Christ, 40 odd years later. So hopefully I can bring that enthusiasm to this build as well. Okay, good. Right, so first up, the great news is, Top Fuels used to have press fit. Trek was quite keen on press fit in its day, but thankfully they've gone back to threaded alloy inserts in there, so everything just screws in nicely. And yes, I know I'm sponsored by Enduro Bearings, and that would normally be what is going on here. But although those Enduro bearings I've been using, the Max Hit and the XD15 ceramics, have been absolutely fantastic. As a tester, I can't really have context on how fantastic they've been unless I'm testing the opposition. And I've already gone through. I can tell you for nothing that they last a hell of a lot longer than a dub bottom bracket from SRAM normally. Far, far longer than a race face cinch bottom bracket. That's the worst bottom bracket I've run recently. That died really, really quickly. Lovely crank, that era crank, but the bottom bracket did not last long at all. So it'll be interesting to see how these Hope bottom brackets run. Certainly great reputation, and they use stainless steel bearings, but the difference is you've got a stainless steel bearing sat inside a separate alloy cup. So the one of the major wins with the Enduro bearings, as well as the quality of the bearing, the quality of the seals, is that the cup is essentially the bearing race, so they can get bigger bearings in there. So it's a proper maximum fill situation in terms of the bearings and the grease. Right, let's crank those up, and then it's crank time. And here is the crank of choice, the new Hope carbon crank, like pretty much everything Hope make, all built in-house in their factory. It's if you saw my core bike video when these cranks were announced, you'll know it's a carbon wrap
around a high density foam core, and then this 1K weave over the top to kind of, I mean, it's designed as basically crash protection. That kind of cross ply doesn't give much tensile strength at all. But then you've got different coloured inserts. You can take the spider off. You can take both crank arms off, so you can run it with any different. I mean, this is a conventional 73mm bottom bracket, but you can run all sorts of different spindle lengths, because you can take. While most crank designs are, single-sided, it's bonded permanently into one side, this you can actually take off the axle. So it's a very, very sustainable crank in that respect. And also you can add different chain rings. What I would say, there's a major pain in the arse with it. There's a whole load of proprietary tools. Well, no, there's not a whole load. There's two. The good news is you get the one for that crank spider. That's included with the crank. However, bottom bracket, that requires a special tool as well, and that's not included. So let's just say I had to improvise, but I'm not going to show you me using a big pipe wrench on a beautiful bike like this, because you might be outraged. But it's nice and securely in now, but bear that in mind. If you're building this at home, you will need the correct bottom bracket tool, or at least something close enough to get that 50-60 Newton meters, which is a lot. Those cups cranked in there, because you don't want your cups coming loose while you're riding. Let's get some more grease on there. See, this is PT's bicycle assembly grease, because I'm sponsored by PT's and I'm assembling a bicycle, so that would seem an appropriate use for this blue goodness. Come on. There we go. Let's get them splines on, because this is a tight fit. I may have already, in Blue Peter style, kind of done a dry fit on this, just to get the spacers in place, so it looks a bit more pro. I'd tend to advise that. Anyway, because otherwise, I mean, to be fair, this crank has, it's they said run 1 2.5mm spacer, and that seems to be correct in terms of it all tightening up nicely. And another slight beef with this crank is it's nice that it comes with a protective sheet, basically like sort of an Invisiframe piece to go on the cranks, but it would be nice if they could fit that in the factory, because you know what I'm like with Invisiframe. You can see this crank already looks a bit skanky, even before I've done anything with it. And that's purely because, I mean, I really do try and do things like Invisiframe to the best as I can, but for some reason they always end up a bit like a teenage face, or just a bit bobbly and acneed. So I'm sorry about that if that bothers you, but let's give it a final crank on. That's on my carefully calibrated grip strength. I'm happy that's about 50 Newton meters there. And it's certainly a nice smooth spin to start with, which suggests all the alignments are good. And it's just a case of snugging the collar up on the far side, and we're good to go. Oh, and one thing I forgot to say, while mentioning that race face crank, how impressively competitive this is on weight. 499 grams for the crank and spider, which is only 14 grams heavier than that race face era crank. So even though, Hope tend to be on the sturdy side of things, this is actually bang on in terms of competitiveness, although it is £100 more expensive than that race face era crank. So you are paying a bit more, but you're supporting Pennine industry at its finest. And obviously, Hope always go above and beyond when it comes to customer service, so you're in good hands there. And now the eagle-eyed amongst you will already have noticed this, but It's a cable, isn't it? It's a cable. Remember, cables for changing gears with, like most normal people do. Well, that's what I figured. Plus, I don't know, there's a little Canadian website you might have heard of called Pink Bike, which recently showed a picture. Let's crack that open. Of a new cable version of SRAM transmission on a bike. So it looks like you're getting all that UDH goodness in a cable format. It's definitely in testing. And also I thought, you know what? This bike is hopefully going to get ridden an absolute ton. So let's just go with cable gears so I don't have to worry about batteries or anything like that. Plus, if you remember, I've got that TRP group set on test still. So I thought, I've ridden quite a lot of Shimano cable recently, but I need to get my eye back in with what a top-end SRAM transmission feels like. I mean, obviously, it's seen a life already. You know, I can't always just have springing fresh stuff onto bikes, because that's not realistic for most people. And also, I'm pretty sure if I had told Alex I was doing this, he'd be like, no, Kez, put Axis on there straight away, get T-type, it's got UDH. So I'll take that thrashing when it comes to it. But as you can see, it's the lightest version of SRAM's cable setup. So it's the XX rear mech, which means it's got carbon fibre cage down the bottom. And look at that! Who doesn't love a spinny wheel style Instagram thing? Should probably put that on there for Instagram, isn't it? Because those are Enduro Bearings XD15 ceramic jockey wheels, which I reckon, having used them a lot, I mean, I've had this rear mech on the pace for the best part of a year with those bearings in, and they're still absolutely super efficient, super smooth. And again, it's another area where you can lose a lot of transmission drag without realising it, is your jockey wheel bearings. So there you go, pretty much top of the range without going crazy danger home German in terms of SRAM rear mech cable actuated shifting. And of course, the other thing to point out is that this is a much lighter way of going. This is a lighter way of going about things than that big old T-type rear mech. And I'm also going to save a little bit of weight. And I'm also going to save weight on the cassette with one of the decisions I've made. And then up here, obviously to go with that cable rear mech, we need a cable shifter as well. So on goes a matching SRAM XX shifter. But one thing I'd forgotten about, I mean, it's all very well going, oh yeah, cables, simple choice, no worries about batteries or electrics, but even with really good quality cut tools, you know, I've got these feedback cable cutters, so it's all been clean. And you know, this little cable end and cable rod, I'm not going to pull it out. I'll be honest, I thought I was recording. I wasn't. I had a whole talk through on it about, you know, how my life and my mental health was hinging on getting this little bit of cable threaded through that wheel there. And then I had to cut it down a bit because the cable end got frayed, and now it's touch and go whether it'll be the right size. But genuinely, I had forgotten how stressful putting a cable mech setup is together. Just, you know, your entire mental health depends on that sliding through nicely and not fraying. And it's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot in the hands of a small piece of wire on a Monday morning, I'm telling you. Oh, I mean, compared to wireless, where you just bolt it on, get in the app. I mean, you don't even need to get in the app. We press a button on it, press a button on the shifter. As they say hi to each other, they're good to go. And that's before we start with all the set screws and stuff like that. If anyone thinks that wireless gears aren't an advance in terms of setup, seriously, try them and then go back to cable. Oh, horrid.
Right, so that's gears finally on there, and now comes to probably the most, in my opinion, the most important spec choice of all, wheels and tyres. I don't think anything influences the ride of a bike more than that. I mean, obviously, beyond base geometry and stuff like that, nothing changes the character of a bike like the rolling stock you put on it. And I have agonised about this. If you know me in tyres, it's I can go so deep into the cave on tyres. It's horrific. And, you know, I've kind of run a tyre library for years when I used to do all the group tests for the magazines and then the website. So I've got pretty much most options covered. The only thing I didn't have, ironically, because this is a Trek bike, is I've not got any Bontrager wheels at the moment. They're on their way. And I've got Hunt, but I didn't want to... well, the Hunt with the carbon spokes are currently in the bike, which needs a Shimano rear hub. So I'm going to change that out. And they've got some new carbon trail wheels coming, which you'll have seen again on that video from the Ardrock Enduro. So I thought there's no point getting some ones that are probably going to be phased out when I've got some new ones coming fresh. And I was like, so do I put some new tyres on there that I haven't ridden before? I've got these Cross Kings, which I think I have ridden them before, but it's been a long time ago. And I was like, no, I kind of don't want to put a bike together. And then because the tyre is so important to the ride, I mean, I've been riding the Cryptotal front, which I'm actually really enjoying. I had a bad experience with it early on, punctured super easily on one of the couple of rides, and I've kind of had it, it's been sat in the corner for months since I got rid of the, I didn't get rid of the Forbidden. They took it away. They took my Forbidden Druid away. Pat, how could you? But yeah, so I could have put Cross King on the back and Continental on the front, but I wasn't quite sure whether the graphics work, because it's all red and black in it, and also Roval wheels, although they probably will be going on there as they're a Specialized brand. Or, you know, as a first move, it didn't seem that polite. And then I was like, all right, maybe I'll go Schwalbe. I've got most of the Schwalbe stuff at the moment, so I could go Rocket Ron front and rear, because I've got Rocket Run already skinned up on the front. As you'll see here, you know, it is a red. I mean, this is a very light tyre. I mean, to be honest, I am going with the Rocket Run on the front. Let's cut to the chase. Let's stop making story time about everything. Yeah, Schwalbe Rocket Run, really good front tyre. As you can see, quite a chunky tread for a race tyre, but it's on this super race carcass, which sounds terrifying because it's got a tiny bit of chafer protection in the sidewall, very thin strip under the front. But because it's so supple, this super race carcass, it's actually proved remarkable in terms of how much hammer it's taken. The back one's looking a bit worn because I was running an insert in it, and you can see where the carcass is coming through on that, the carcass weave. But as a front tyre, even though it's that red stripe means it's the speed compound, so their fastest rolling compound, it's actually a pretty controlled and predictable front tyre. Plus, I've been running it all summer. On and off, so I know exactly how it behaves, and I know how these reserve XC28 wheels behave as well. Again, they're kind of mid-pack, they're decent weight, around 1,500 grams, but they're not super light, they're not sketchy in any way. They've got a really good kind of calm ride feel to them, but plenty of pep on them, and you can never go wrong with DT Swiss 350 hubs. And, perhaps most importantly, they've got red valves in already, so they work. And then I was like, so what do we do on the back? I could put the Rocket Ron back on there, but I'm like, come on, it's still kind of summer out there. There's still some dusty bits on the trails, so let's try and string it out as far as possible. And I'm going to stick with the Vittoria Peyote on the back. Just a review on them, so make sure you watch that. And to be fair, little bit pingy, little bit lively, but grippier than I expected, and so far more survivable than I expected. But of course, as soon as I fit them to this bike, and having put the review of them online, they're going to do all sorts of horrible things, which I said they didn't do, because that's how it goes. And that's kind of why I'm going to keep running them. because that always happens after a review. So I always the joy of the internet is you can, repost a review or edit it. So I'm going to give them a bit more time on the back. I mean, they've done several 100K. You wouldn't know it by looking at them because that graphene silica compound really does seem to wear well. And just see how far into winter I can take them, or whether they just don't work that well with the bike. And then eagle-eyed viewers will have spotted that is not the latest SRAM cassette. That is a 1050. That's the 1299. So it's the top of the range cassette from the previous generation of standard cassettes. So before T-Type, if you see what I mean. And the reason I've gone for that is 52 teeth. Hopefully I will never need that on a bike with as much traction and as light as this Trek Top Fuel. Because by the time you're in 52, you're kind of sub-walking pace, and as soon as you nudge the front wheel in something, you stop because you've got very little inertia and pace on there. And also, it saves the best part of 100 grams over the 1275 1052 cassettes, which were the alternatives I had. There may be a 1299 in a 1052 somewhere in the workshop, but I couldn't find it. And then, really flipping it round, that is a Shimano Icetech XTR rotor on there. Is it XTR? No, LT81 I think is XT. For the simple reason that I didn't realise the back of the bike is post mount, so I've got to go for 180. So immediately that kind of cut down, it's centre lock, so that immediately cut down my options. And I was, the obvious option is, where is it? What this wheel had on, or what I normally run, is the SRAM HS2 rotors, which are thicker, stiffer, and they give, noticeably increased braking power, but they're a lot heavier, 76 grams heavier, this rotor, than that XT one in 180mm size. So literally, by running two Shimano rotors rather than two SRAM rotors, I'm saving 152 grams. And because it's a 180 already, I don't need that much braking power. So the only thing that might really get in my face, and I might have to change out, I mean, this is how shallow I am, is not so much the performance of that, but that's a lot of label on there, and it's not going to be the same label as the front. But hey, the whole point of this was it was kind of be a twisted build, so if that gets your skin shorts in a bunch, then let me know in the comments and we'll see what we can do about it, whether I care about it or not, or we'll just see how it runs. The whole idea of this project is it's an ongoing thing, and that's why Trek commissioned me to do it, is to just run a bunch of different options and see how the bike performs in various formats. So, going to get the wheels in. It's time for a chain, which again is going to go a little bit sideways to what you might expect. And the other advantage to running this rotor is because it's narrower than the SRAM rotor, it's easier to set up on these Hope brakes, which they don't have as much clearance as other brakes in terms of pad retraction, so they can be a little bit of a sod to set up without rubbing with a wider rotor. And if you're wondering why I didn't run Hope rotors, that's simply because I forgot to ask for some, so I might get on the blower to Robin at Hope and see if I can add some more red to the equation. But yeah, I think the black looks fine anyway, although I probably could have cleaned it. But I just want to get, I'm sorry, I am rushing a little bit at the end of it. I just want to get this bike built and up and out because we're almost there and I'm excited. Right, so the chain is now on, and controversially again, as it's the Twisted Trek, I've gone with a KMC chain because not only they're a little bit cheaper, but obviously it would have made sense to go with a SRAM chain. But I've been using that TRP transmission with a KMC chain, so what I wanted to check, because frankly it's been a bit crappy, the shifting's been all over the place, right? Just jumping between gears and never quite aligning. I was like,
I wonder if it's the chain that's causing the issues rather than the cassette itself. So what I'll do is I'll get a KMC chain. I know a SRAM chain is going to work, but will a KMC chain work just as well? And it turns out, not only is it physically clunkier at the lever, but also it's really hard to get it to play nicely with this cassette. And frankly, it's doing, oh, there you go, straight up from 10 to 12. It's really hard to get it to play. It's coming down, climbing up. It's not happy. I mean, obviously, I'll take it out on the trail and see how it beds in there. But initial feedback is that it might well be that KMC X12 chain that's causing the issues on the TRP, because it's certainly seems to be causing issues here. In which case, that would radically change my review, potentially, if I could put Drivetrain on there and it works nicely, radically change my review of the TRP transmission. So, although I've just spent a load of money on that KMC chain, well, not a load, it was like 30 quid, but that's still a lot of money for something that doesn't really do the job, if that turns out to be the case. So, yeah, it's been worthwhile because it saved me from calling out the whole TRP chain. So anyway, that's in the future. For now, we have got a working chain of sorts on there. So now, oh God, you can just hear it clunking just as I even backpedal. So now, you can see I popped the little crank boots on there. You get little crank boots protecting the cranks. So on go my time pedals. That's another thing I haven't talked to you about. Time pedal, been very, very impressed. Again, expensive, like a SRAM chain, but so far, really, really worth it. Actually, no, to be fair, these ATAC XCs aren't as crazy. So I've got the 12s, which are the titanium ones, and these are actually a reasonable price. I mean, obviously not as cheap as something like your Bob Basic Shimano SPDs, but not crazy expensive either. And the bearing quality and just the consistency of clipping in and out of them has been absolutely excellent. You can see I've gone for the smaller bodied cross-country style pedal, mainly because that guarantees complete compatibility with any shoe I run them on them. Whereas I've tried some XC shoes, I mean, you can space them out so they give clearance, but it's just easier on the, sorry, you can space the cleats out on the platform versions, but obviously it's easier if I just have a setup, because I'm probably going to use both trail and XC shoes on this bike because it is in that, you know, crossover sphere. It's good to have a pedal that I know whatever shoes I'm going to jump on it will work nice and simply. So now just one more bit. I can see why Dave Rome hates Y wrenches at times. A bling to add to the bike. Wolftooth sent me some red anodized alloy bolts just to save a bit of weight there, and just to, you know, jazz it up a bit more. Teenage me would be absolutely frothing over this build. And also the nice thing is, I've noticed now doing this that the inserts in that bits cover there are actually brass. So if you're wondering why I didn't stick a bit of thread lock or anti-seize on there, it's because it's going into brass, so it should be less of a problem anyway. And I'll replace these accessory bolts up here as well. Happy days. Oh, they're short. That's a bit cheeky. You're going to need to replace those bolts anyway if you're going to stick any kind of cage on there. Naughty Trek, considering how much this frame costs. That is a bit naughty, boys, because look, you can see That's the length of the proper bottle bolt there. And that's basically just a little stubby space saver up there. You may as well just put a plastic plug in there, because you'll save a couple of grams. There's no danger of it coming loose and making a rattly noise. And those bolts weren't usable anyway. So let's get some red in it, because that's a win with this bike, right? And talking of plastic plugs, and by that I mean just this little rubber bung, which I'm hoping just pops. Yeah, there we go. That's actually nicely positioned there, because not only does it stop that hole turning your top fuel into a flute, it also acts as a little bump rub stop there on the paintwork. So I may have got upset about that bolt for the accessory mount, but they're definitely winning there. And to be honest, I think I'm winning with this bike build as well. That is looking, in my humble opinion, pretty damn tasty. So there you go. My first build on the Twisted Trek Top Fuel project is now complete and ready to hit the trails. And I have to say, from my personal opinion, aesthetically, I think this absolutely slaps. So, let me know what you think of what I've done with the build in terms of componentry, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of whether it's absolute heresy to hit the trails with different brands of tyre on the same bike, and whether you agree with mixing and matching brake, transmission, and all kinds of things like that on religious or, agnostic grounds, or just on the fact they might not work together. That we'll obviously dig into as I get more trail time on the bike. But initial impressions are that I'm hoping it works okay. I mean, not so sure about the chain. But one great piece of news is I've just had it on the scales, and considering it, it's a mid build, I would say this is. You've got 34mm stanchion fork. You've got kind of mid-weight wheels. They're not hyperlight wheels, certainly. This comes in at 11.4 kilos for this medium large without pedals on. I know if you see me getting a fight on Rob Ride's EMTB about without pedals on, because the industry standard is you always weigh bikes without pedals on, because then you can just add the weight of your own pedals, and that's the way it goes. I've just been involved in an argument on Rob Ride's EMTB about weighing bikes with or without pedals, so that's what the reference was there. But anyway, back to the bike. That means it's a clear kilo lighter than a bog standard Epic Evo 8 Pro from Specialized, which is, you can actually probably just see it in the corner of the picture there, which is kind of its main, I would say, adversary counterpart comparison bike is in this mid-travel but lightweight frame space, certainly from the big brands. So that's going to be very, very interesting, getting those two bikes on the trail together, and that's one of the first things I'm going to be doing with this trek. But expect a ton of content on this. It's basically going to be my test mule that I just switch stuff on and off all through the next months. And like I say, I can drop it down to 120, stick with the 120 at the rear, or I can change it to 130 at the rear and then go up to 140 at the front. I can mullet it. There is a lot I can do with this bike to really explore its full potential. So I'm really, really excited about getting those rides in and generating that content. But for now, massive thanks to you, my Patreon supporters. It really makes such a huge difference. I know not all of you watch the videos that much, but just having my back means the absolute world to me, and it means I've carried on this long, and now I'm properly going to launch on YouTube, really dig into it, because a lot of my other work's fallen away. Just having that consistent income makes a huge difference. So genuinely, thanks an absolute ton for that, guys. And obviously, if there's anything I can do by way of comments, if there's anything I can do in terms of giving you more information or helping you with any buying decisions or anything like that,
then fire away in the comments or just message me via Patreon, and I'm more than happy. Don't ever feel like you're, taking up too much of my time. You guys effectively are paying for my time. So, go ham, ask me whatever you want, and I'll do whatever I can to help. But also, big thanks to my industry sponsors as well, because without those guys, the channel really wouldn't exist at all. That's what's going to push me into the future, is support from the industry. So if you are shopping, do remember who supports me and try and support them where you can. But for now, I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kes TV, getting my Trek Top Fuel twisted build ready to make the most of the last few dry days of summer. Well, let's hope it rides as good as it looks. So, big thanks for watching this far and kind of getting involved in the build, being interested in it. There's going to be a whole load of iterations over the next few months as I change spec on it, change travel on it, and basically this is going to be the backbone of my kit testing for the forthcoming months, and that's going to see this bike mutate into all sorts of different formats and performance SKUs as well. So hopefully you'll be interested to follow that as it develops. So click for notifications so you know when those videos go live. Get subscribed if you're not already. That makes a huge difference to how much YouTube gives this channel attention. Give it a thumbs up, like, tell your mates about the channel. And if you really like what I'm doing here, please consider supporting me on Patreon, because the guys who are already sponsoring me there on a monthly basis do make a genuinely big difference to how much time I can spend in front of the camera talking to you about bikes. And it's not a big amount per month, but cumulatively it makes a big difference to the channel. So if you can get on board with that, brilliantly. And if you could bear my industry sponsors in mind when you're shopping for your next bits of bike kit, then if you support them, they'll continue to support me, and the whole thing works really, really nicely. But for now, I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kes TV, finishing my first But for now, I've been Guy Kesteven on Guy Kes TV, finishing my first custom build on my Twisted Trek Top Fuel project. Let's hope this rides as well as it looks.